Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.
What's up, everybody? It is your assistant, your friend Crystal Cross, right here on the Morning Jam podcast. I'm super excited to be here with my co-host, Grace Melton. What's up, Grace?
Hello. Hello, everybody. It is the one and only Grace coming to keep it real, keep it settled, keep it moving, and keep it live right here. I'm so happy to be here on this platform with my very own sister, Crystal Cross, your sis and your friend.
Dope.
Not like stepsisters, not sisters in the Lord, but biological blood.
Biological blood.
Y'all are sisters.
Yes, we are sisters.
Yes.
Thank you. Because I'm sitting over here tripping. I'm like, they look so much like, okay.
Okay, yes.
A very special guest here, Anthony Franklin. What's up, Anthony? How's it going?
What's good, people? Thank you for having me. Thank you. So glad to be here.
You are
yes.
I'm loving the hat.
Thank you. That's my wife and I. We have the same. Well, I have king. Hers is queen.
Oh, cool.
So this was an anniversary thing that we did. We did a photo shoot 2 years ago, and it was a king and a queen theme. So this is what the hat is.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's sweet. That is so sweet. Well, welcome to the Morning Jam podcast with your sis and your friend, the one and only Crystal Cross. I'm loving it here, you guys. Just to let you know, Anthony, this is down to earth, having fun, but this interview is about you. We're going to learn about Anthony Franklin today.
Okay.
But let's get started. Let the people know who Anthony Franklin is and where you're from.
You know, this is cool and this is weird and strange all at the same time, because normally I'm on the other side asking people these questions. Yeah. It's rare that I have to tell people anything about me. So if I kind of fumble through this, y'all just kind of walk with me, please.
Okay.
But this is good. I'm grateful to be able to be on your platform, Crystal and Grace. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony, born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm not going to give you my age. When I do tell people my age, they tell me that I look 10 years younger. So we'll just go with that right there. But I'm born and raised in Greenville, South Carolina. Hip hop head. Love music. If I could pan around in my studio, I have 4 keyboards over here, 5 microphones back here, cameras and video stuff over here, lights, camera actions everywhere. I love music and videography. But in spite of all of that, I had a very hard childhood. Grew up in a single parent home, just me and my brother. One of the memories, which is not good, one of the memories I have growing up was kind of get dark here, like real quick. My mom going through domestic violence, and I found out later, my brother and I, we saw 2 of the different things, same incident, but 2 different things. I remember seeing a gun, like a really big gun. I've always thought it was a toy gun, but it was a real gun. Later on, my brother told me that he remembers seeing blood. And so we put those 2 things together, and it was a situation where my mom was in a domestic situation with my dad. I remember the gun, my brother remembered the blood. So
was she shot?
No, she was beat.
Oh, wow. With the butt of a gun. I kind of figured that was.
Yeah. What?
She was beat with the butt of a gun. What they call a pistol whip, I guess.
Yeah.
So like I said, to me,
I wasn't going to say that, but I knew where you were going.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked me that, because somebody would be thinking that my mom is deceased. But no, my mom is alive. She's thriving. She's a breast cancer survivor. She's an evangelist. She's the minister. She loves people, and she is doing so well. She is awesome. But there was a situation where she had to get out of that, marriage. It was toxic, and I think if she would have stayed in that, we would have, grew up hating our dad. I love him. Yeah. He's made some very hard decisions for his life, but, so some of those footsteps we kind of followed in terms of the relational things. That was one of the things that was hard for me doing relationships. Very hard. Didn't have the male figure to show me how to do it right. So I was one who went from female to female, and I did the manipulation role. If you don't do it this way, then I know how to get it. I get you before you can get me. Did a lot of that stuff. And so I had to grow up in that stuff. So outside of that, we stayed in church, even in the midst of all that mess. Mom kept us in church. Youth ministry was the thing. My mom was my youth pastor. And I believe I developed a love for teens by seeing how my mom would minister to teens, even in her hurt, y'all. Even when she was hurt, I remember times when she would go to church crying.
Oh,
But
wow.
before she would get up before the teens, my mom, she had the face, and she would just minister on through that. But I remember hearing her minister and see her minister through analogies, and she was a fun teacher, a great teacher. And a lot of my teachings, when I do get a chance to minister, I sound just like her. So I had a great teacher, great mom. So outside of that family, I did 10 years in the United States Navy. Loved the military, loved seeing the world. I was in Japan for 10 years. I loved it. I'm married right now. 5 years. 5 years married to this beautiful queen right here. My wife, Sky. I have one son. His name is AJ. He just graduated, y'all, with his master's degree in, I think it's visual technology or something like that. So he's going to be going to California, and I may be going with him. So anyhow, I'm just loving life. And so now I have a radio show called Swerve Teen Talk Radio. It's a podcast. It's 24/7. You can get it any day of the week. And I love talking to teens and love doing this radio stuff. That's me.
Awesome.
Is there like an echo with me talking? Do y'all hear?
No echo. I don't hear an echo.
Great. Say something right quick.
Hello.
Okay, it just sound like it was like an echo, but I
Okay.
guess it's okay. But I think that's amazing, Anthony. That is so awesome. But let's go back for a minute with your mom and you being her being in just the single parenting. Was
Right.
there any issues of that particular time where you felt like, okay, I'm going to step up and be the man, and here I go with my mom and just take care of that situation? Was there ever a time that you wanted to do that for her?
We were thrust into that role. I think one of the best things about it was that we had a spiritual covering as well during that time. My grandmother, my auntie, we had an aunt from New York who was saved. I mean, she was New York City saved. That's a different kind of saved from being saved from the South. I mean, she was for real about it. And so although it was a little structure and she was really strict about the salvation, that kept us. We hated it, but me being the man I am now is a byproduct of how strict she was. Right now people can walk in front of the church and they cuss in front of the church, even out on the sidewalk. They smoke on church property and they chew gum and a lot of that stuff. We couldn't do that stuff. And although we thought it was hard, that stuff kept us. It gave us that reverence and that fear for God. So we had a lot of family, that community, I'm going to say. We had a village that stepped in with my mom, stepped in with my brother and with I. And it was a little hard. We were devilish. We were devious, little kids. But we had to step up. We were working. We had paper routes. I worked at, what y'all know about Bojangles Chicken? Bojangles?
Nothing about Bojangles Chicken, sorry.
Popeyes and Bojangles are cousins.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of be the same. Yeah, depending on where you are, north or south. So more in South Carolina is your Bojangles Chicken, but it's the same thing. So I was working at Bojangles Chicken. I did Arby's. So we was making money and working and learned responsibilities early on. We was buying our own clothes and then we learned how to take that and begin tithing. So 15 to 16, I was tithing and putting part of the money back into the bills and helping pay bills. So although I didn't really have a head knowledge of what I was doing, we were being groomed, for the responsibility.
Awesome. Well, Grace, do you have a question?
If there is, okay, so your mom was in the domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of viewers that are going to be watching this podcast. If there's anything that you could say to them, to children that are in that similar situation, how would you encourage that child to, and even their psyche? I can't imagine what you and your brother's psyche was at that point, because I can only imagine that it was jittery, like what is going to happen today? You wake up thinking, what is going to happen today? If there's a young man or a young girl out there in that situation, what would you say to them?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. And we actually have an episode on our podcast about that. breaking the cycles. And what we like to do with Swerve is speak to the entire family. We once began only talking to teens, and we found out that the teens can't really get the help unless we're also talking to the aunties, the uncles, the grandmas, and everybody. And so we found out that we have teens that's living with their grandma and grandpa who is also in abusive relationships. And so we had to kind of research and stretch our research and find out what's really going on. So what I would say to the young man and to the woman, to the young lady, is to speak up. There's a rule that I like to talk about in youth ministry, and it's called the 5-to-1 rule. And that means for every one teen, you should have 5 adults that you can go to, 5 adults you can go to ask for prayer. You should have that one for accountability, for mentorship, your pastor or leader, that 5-to-1 rule. So I think that every youth, every teen should have that village. And I find out a lot of times that there's isolation. And isolation is close kin to suicide as well. So a lot of those teens I found out that's in those situations like that, because they're hushed, them too could either go out, by way of suicide, or they grow up doing that same cycle.
Yeah.
It's important that they began talking about it. And I think that parents and people need to recognize those signs. And there are signs that we can look at and say, hey, this kid is like different. They're acting out. They're quiet. They're eating a lot. They're not eating a lot. Their weight is fluctuating. Their emotions is just like all over the place. Those are signs that something is going on in the home. And one of the worst things that we don't do is ask questions. We'll say, hey, how you doing? But we don't wait and listen for the answer, or we accept the answer when they say, I'm good. We accept that answer, but I've learned, and I'll tell you this, if people are always giving an answer, I'm good, there's always something else behind that.
Right.
I think it's okay in this day and age. I think it's safe that we probe a little bit more. We ask questions. I think there's open-ended questions that you ask to get the right answers.
Right, right.
Just going in and just saying, hey man, how's your day going? That's not enough. We should get really creative with our questions and look for the signs. And
let me stop you there, Anthony, because I'm gonna tell you this. I'm going through a divorce right now.
Okay.
And I always ask my son. I said, son, how are you today?
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the divorce that me and your father, your dad, is going through right now? And his answer is always, I'm good. Mm-hmm. So how do I? But I don't stop there because I'm of my concerns. Because I always want to continue to talk, because I'm a person that likes to talk, and I want to dig and get that out of you. But his answer is, when you said that, I was like, man, you're hitting home here. So for me, how do I go about getting the real answer that really needs to be?
More of the answer, yeah. One thing that I've learned, because my son, he went through that as well with me and his first mom, and we will begin doing dates.
Before you answer, let me tell you this: my son is 17 years old, so he knows what's going on. So, but go ahead, continue. So
he's aware. My son, he was of age too, so he knew what was going on as well. He saw a lot of things that he shouldn't have seen, and I availed him to a lot of things that he shouldn't have seen as well. So that's something that I've had to eat over the years. And I've had to be humbly and honest with my son and come to the terms that he's no dummy. He knew exactly what was going on between mom and not insult his intelligence by over talking him, And so we would have father and son dates, and we would go out and we would talk, and I can't remember exactly everything we said, but I do remember building a better trust relationship with my son, and allowing him to feel safe. One thing that happened, my son got exposed to pornography in a very weird way. And I remember I was going to get on him in a car, and I was going to really, just scold him. And I remember the Holy Spirit jacked me up. I mean, I really started choking. And the Holy Spirit was like, you consult him and talk to him in the same way I covered you in your ugliness, in your stuff. Holy Spirit got on me, but it was loving. You know, it was kind. You know, he jacked me up, but he covered me, and I felt love. And so that's the same thing I had to do with my son, and that came because of the divorce, because daddy wasn't there, mama wasn't there. The absence of anything means there's a presence of something else.
Right.
And so because there was an absence of both parents, there was a presence of something else. The thing is, we don't know what that's going to be. We have no idea. So I began to ask those uncomfortable questions. Have you been exposed to pornography? Are you looking at pornography? He wouldn't tell me no. But I found out because I just happened to just walk up into the house one day and sat down at his laptop just like this. And he and I were both into music. And I began to type in the browser www. And you know, normally your search, whatever's in the search drops down. I saw X's.
All of it. Yeah. Oh.
He stood on the far side of the room, and I was like, son, I was like, come over here. I was like, I love you, man. I was like, I love you. I said, the difference between you and me right now, I was like, I didn't have a safety net. Nobody caught me. So I was like, lost in it.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And it's important for them to know that this space right here, home, is safe. You know what I mean? I'm safe. It's okay to tell me. And I try to express, and I do express, not try, every day. Son, you know, you can tell me anything, you know. And question. So have that sense, like with your childhood and your child, can you recognize the cycles that begins, you know, when a child go through, you know, different things when they're young, and, you know, they begin to think that that's normal. That's the norm, because that's what they grew up in. That's what, now that cycle is going, because they think that it's their norm.
Absolutely.
They're going to go out and kind of repeat that thing because that's their norm.
Right.
How do you address that and stop it early? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes cycles come through. It's like a generational thing. You know what I mean? And so what is your take on that?
Yeah, and that's a good question too. I had the chance to talk to a therapist, a licensed therapist here in Jacksonville, Florida, and we was talking about divorce. And we were talking about the adults, but then he got onto the teens, and he was telling us how even with teenagers, that becomes a cycle because they see that. And most teens who have parents who divorce, 9 times out of 10, they're going to also become adults who divorce. So also what I've been able to do again was to be able to ask those hard questions, because I was a teenager who didn't have the father figure around. I can look at a kid, I can look at a young man, and I can tell either about how he's talking to a female, how he's talking to another dude, how he's addressing them, the yes sir, no sir thing. If they're sitting alone, they wear a mask. They wear a mask. A lot of them alone. A lot of them are really, really nice. They're really, really kind, but they're a ticking time bomb, and they just waiting. It's very important for us as youth pastors, youth leaders, adults, mentors, whoever we are, to take interest in what they want. If they play basketball and they say, hey, I made the basketball team and I'm going to be playing basketball on Tuesday night, be there. Be there. Be there at that game. They're not just saying somewhere in the back of their mind, they want that support, you know, to be there. Something else that I've learned with these teens is I got a million thoughts I'm trying to get to, but with these teens of divorce is that they're looking for someone, they're looking for the father figure. I'm going to put it that way. They're looking for the father figure. I've had a lot of these young men who turned out to become homosexual, and that's a whole different conversation that we can have there.
Oh, wow.
They turned out to become homosexual because they didn't have the leading and the guiding of the male structure. And so they develop these feminine ways, or they've had them, and now they're just more open with it because there's no really challenge them in that. And that's not to say that a young man is not supposed to cry. That's why you have tear ducts. You're supposed to cry. It's not to say that you're not supposed to be in the kitchen cooking or things of that nature. You know, I think that's good. I think that'd be good when you get married, you know, that your wife can see that you can take out the trash and you can cook. But there's other things that young boys should be engaged in mentally, physically, emotionally. There's challenges that they should have. And I think.
And what are those challenges and what are those things?
I think one of the good challenges, I'm going to start with spiritually, leading, being a leader. One of the best challenges I had as a young man was being in the praise team on our church choir. I played drums. I wrote songs. I was given the opportunity to lead. Men love that. We have an ego thing, you know, but it has to be shaped. It has to be done right. So being able to spiritually lead, and I'm going to say this to youth pastors, if you're looking at it, if you hear it, give your teens the opportunity to lead. If you have a teen in your youth ministry who's always acting up, who's always mad about something causing chaos, do you know you can home in on that anger and put that to use somewhere else? Maybe that teen could be the one who watches over everybody else and makes sure nobody get hurt. If they're always loud, maybe he's the one that could be the one to turn on the lights, to do the sound. You know, I find out for every problem, there is an answer for it.
Yeah, exactly.
There is some place that they fit in youth ministry. You know, so that's one of the first challenges, to be able to put them to work spiritually, emotionally. One of the things we don't talk about in the Black community is going to therapy. We don't do that. You know, and until it's way too late, until somebody's dead or until somebody has hurt somebody. But therapy is available now. Not so much, you know, when I was younger. But right now, it's wide open. And I had a friend of mine, she called me, I remember, you know, she was texting me. And she kept texting me. And she was like, I need help. My family's this way and that way. And the minute I got help, I got the phone number, I got the email, I got the web address, she disappeared. She didn't even take it. And I was like, our culture is just so it's so damaged.
Yeah.
And there's help that's there. And so why would you not take help when it's available? Why would you not eat there when you have people that can cook it up and serve it to you? And I find that in my community. I find that with the youth as well. You know, it's there. And the youth is just, they're not going to be so trustworthy. That's one thing you just have to accept. They're not going to just come run to you. They're not going to just believe everything. It's going to have to be an ongoing process of developing a relationship.
Yeah.
Relationships are uncomfortable because people don't want you in their space. You know, this is my space. This is my territory. You know, you can't come here. That's uncomfortable for people to talk about that. But it's so rewarding when you can crack that code and you can get up in that kid's space and they begin to smile. And I had one kid, oh my God, I may cry right here, I may not. I had one kid, we were doing youth ministry and he was mean mugging me so hard. And I started talking about, I think, death or something. We were talking about the afterlife. And then I went into talking about pornography and acceptance and relationships. And I began to see his countenance soften up. And I was like, okay, I'm speaking this language. And I kept going. By the time we ended, he sat there, the only one sitting there, still me mugging. Everybody left. And he stood up and he hugged me so hard for 10 minutes. And he cried on my shoulder. And I'm sitting up in there slobbing and crying on him and everything. Never seen him again. Never seen him again. He came in there and just being sensitive enough to the Holy Spirit to abandon my own agenda and talk about something for that one soul, for that one kid.
Exactly.
And I know he got a breakthrough that night.
Why is vulnerability so uncomfortable?
Because it requires honesty. It requires you to abandon what's familiar, I believe. I think we like to hold on to what's familiar.
That's true.
Even if it's toxic, or if it's familiar, we're going to hold on to it. I did that. You know, I held on to a toxic relationship because that's what I saw from my dad. You know, the one thing I learned how to do really well was to wear a mask. I think I can't say if men do it more than women. I haven't really seen it, but I just know in the church it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but true. Vulnerability, I think for men, it requires you to be open and to the word intimacy. I'm sure you heard this before. Intimacy, into me, see. It allows you to see into me, and I don't want you to see all this stuff.
Yes.
I'm protecting this stuff. This stuff has kept me, even though it's killing me and hurting you. It's comfortable, and at least I know what to do with it. Until you abandon it and try something new, you will never know how good freedom feels. Being on the other side, walking in the light. One of my pastors, one of my mentors, she told me, she said, walk in the light. You will love it over here.
Oh, wow.
That's simple. Just walk in the light. You will love it over here. Because I was so used to, even as a youth pastor, y'all, as a youth pastor, I was still in darkness. I was still damaged.
Yeah.
I knew how to talk like a kid. I knew how to swag. I knew how to rap. I knew how to freestyle. I could beatbox. But I was in darkness. My senior pastor peeped that out. Again, the thing that was so cool about it, she knew there was some areas in my life like that, but she never said, you got to sit down. You got to go away. She kept me where I was, and she crafted me. She helped me where I am now. She was like, you can go stand in the far corner and kids are just going to come to you. We need to develop this. You got something good. And that's the same thing with other people in the body of Christ. But what we do, we shut them up, sit them down, isolate them, but I think what a real leader does is lead and help create other people. That's what I want to do with our youth. Everybody counts them off. Everybody writes them off. They got attitude, or they pants too low, or they dreads hanging. Man, I'm like, come in with your dreads, your teeth, with your sagging. We gonna work on that. But for right now, I just want to be your friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Work on everything. The Holy Spirit gonna work on everything else. The one thing I don't do is tell the kid how to be like me.
Right.
Because when I tell them to pull their pants up, I'm telling them to act my age. Now be your age. Be comfortable, swag out, because I love your swag. We need your youth. We need your energy. We need your charisma. We need your charm, because you're reaching people that I can't reach.
Yeah.
If I can just develop their character, they can get out there and win a corner of people on the street that I would never reach. And then I learned that too when I did prison ministry for 10 years as well, going to death row. You can't just put anybody on death row. Am I talking too much? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
I'm loving it. I'm listening.
You're fine.
Going to death row, you can't just put anybody on death row to talk to those people. It's scary. It can be very intimidating. When I say there's a darkness, there is a physical presence that you feel the moment you go onto death row.
Wow.
Unlike going to a detention center or a juvenile center. It's still heavy in spirit. But when I went to death row, I'm gonna tell you the truth. You can believe me or not, but I have a friend of mine who rapped with me back in the day, and we saw the same thing. There were I think 10 inmates up and down this hall. We went to the first cell. It was lit up. This guy was a Muslim. It was lit up, very light. I made my way on down to speak to everybody else. And we both saw that their first cell grew dark. And they all have the same amount of light exposure. There was a little block of light. So everybody had the same amount of light. His cell was the only one that went dark. So we went back down there, and this guy was literally levitating. He was levitating. We looked at each other. We went back down to talking to everybody else. I've never seen anything like that. And even saying that today, my skin is actually crawling. But when we came back up to him, it was like, so hey, what was going on? Here's his answer. He was like, I was entertaining spirits.
Oh wow!
What?
Spirits. Guess how old this cat was? 23. Young dude. And he said I was entertaining spirits. So I'm saying that to say this, that getting teens and young adults to a place to, for ministry, prepping them for ministry, I think it's good that they encounter reality like this and see stuff like this, because they're either on this side of freedom or they on the other side.
Yeah.
And either way it go, we got to get to them, And so it hurt me that I was talking to a young man who was 23, and he knew how to entertain spirits and levitate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Man, I've never seen it again in my life, But then on this side of prison, I said when I saw that, I was like, I have to be much more on it with these kids that's free, that's in church. But I can't can't take it for granted that their mom and their dad is dropping them off, and I have the opportunity to minister to them after seeing somebody levitating from entertaining spirits. I can't be soul for granted, So my goal is to feature as much of Jesus. We gonna eat some steak. We gonna go play basketball. We gonna do work. We gonna learn some skills. Anything it takes to keep you from getting to that.
That's awesome. So for me, Anthony, me and my sister, our children are the same age. They're 6 months apart.
Okay.
So I know the feeling of keeping them in the forefront of God and keeping them, making sure. And like we grew up in church. We raised our kids up in church, still raising them up in church now, hoping and praying when they do walk out the home that they make the right decision and make sure that God is leading and guiding them in the right path. Yeah. So let's talk about Swerve Radio Show.
All right.
Let us know a little bit about Swerve Radio Show. What is it all about?
Swerve, it started in a weird way. At one of the churches I attended here locally, I was the youth pastor. And we encountered a radio station, AM, FM. And part of the youth ministry was to begin doing radio ministry. So we went live with the whole youth ministry. It was just a Friday night party. It was live. It was nice. I was like, this is fun. This is cute and everything. But I'm like, I want to get to some real stuff, because that's what I was exposed to. Again, coming out of juvenile ministry, prison ministry, I saw some real stuff. And I'm like, okay, we're talking fluff. One thing that I learned about radio with the what do you call it? The ones that pay I forget what you call it, but they have to do the telethons and stuff where people have to call in and pay, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They're very limited on what they can air. They have to kind of almost keep it friendly because they don't want to offend a certain demographic of people. And so that's kind of where we were. We would do the telethons, and we had, rich people of a certain class who didn't want to hear about this stuff. So we had to kind of keep it light and fluffy. So we couldn't get to the core of youth ministry. After I talked to the presidents and the VPs of the radio station, it was like, you either keep doing it this way or we shut it down. I'm like, fine, I'll peace out. And I let that go. But I knew radio, after tasting it for a while, I knew radio was in my blood because I saw how it did evangelistically. So my wife and I, we got to the house. And the one thing I love about my wife as well, we can create from dirt. You give us a speck of dirt, we can make a castle. Don't take long for anything. But we began to pray. We began to think about it. She remembered that she had some friends in high places. My wife is, she's an actress. She know people that know people that know people, and she recommended me. So my first syndication was to a California station. They just said you have to create a 2-hour show. I'm thinking like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Show. So we began to sit, prep, talk about it. We're trying to figure out a name for it. And I remember I came across a scripture. I'm going to try to pull it up real quick. It was from Proverbs, and it was neither turn to the left nor to the right.
Right.
Another member of my church, she sent me that same scripture, and the interpretation says neither swerve to the left or to the right. Never heard that before, but I read it. I was like, swerve. I like this swerve thing, So it was like, is it an acronym? Does it stand for something? And we was like, nah, it means just that. Getting rerouted, rerouting yourself, changing directions, literally repenting. Swerve, and that's what you want to avoid hitting something. When you swerve, it's not a gentle thing. You swerving, you get in danger. That's what we stuck with. That's what we wanted our teams to do. We wanted them to swerve, get rerouted, and get motivated. And so me being in hip hop for like over 20 years with me touring, I had a lot of great friends that was in the hip hop industry, a lot of radio personalities. So I reached back out to my friends that was making music. And I was like, hey, I need a favor, man. Send me some music. Let's get this thing going. And it came together just like that. So we went from California to locally here to South Carolina, Tampa. There's another I'm forgetting about, but then we have the podcast as well. So it just literally took shape and just kept growing. And 6 years later, it's still going.
Good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. I love that you are reaching out to teens, because that's huge for me too. But mine is more into the women field. I have a show that's coming up in 2021 called Heart to Heart, and that's basically a platform for women, because women, as Black, Caucasian, Mexican, all type, we're always in competition with one another, and instead of supporting and being that foundation for one another. And that's what that's all about. But I love Swerve radio show. That is awesome. The foundation of that, swerving and getting yourself in order and getting yourself in line with where God wants us to be in. And it start young.
Yeah,
exactly what you're talking about.
Because I mean, there's so many different ways that people are reaching teens these days. So I wonder why different ministries are in competition with each other. This is a different way that we're reaching teens. I mean, there's other radio stations that's doing, youth ministry. God has favored Swerve in a unique way. We have something very unique that we do in reaching teens. And so it's just a piece to the bigger puzzle, to get our teens back in church, reaching our millennials, because there was a study that indicated, well, the question was, why are millennials or teens not going to church? And I got into that study. What I found out is that they are in church. They are going to church. We have teens that's like radical, like that's crazy by God and doing things. But there's also a flip side to look at. Why are teens not going to church? Why are millennials not going to church? And there is a true core of teens and millennials that don't do church anymore. And so we did a radio broadcast even on that, and that was an interesting study as well. Just to know
what was the outcome of that.
One of them was, it was a situation kind of like my son. My son is into science stuff, right? He just likes to know how things work, and so he asked questions. For some reason, the church have this thing about Scientology. Not to say that we support the religion of Scientology, but just understanding science. So when there's teens that's inquisitive, that want to get into science, many of the churches I know were scared of that because it was too close to Scientology. And they felt like you just need to walk by faith. Just have faith. You don't need to really study this stuff out. These kids are inquisitive. They want to know this stuff, And so a lot of teens felt like the church was being judgmental and was not allowing them to really experience that God-given ability in them to just study, to just want to know. And so they were hushed, they were set to the side, they was quieted. And so they felt they could get it better in college, in the streets, or somewhere else. Either way it went, they got the answer to their questions, but it should start in church. When our website started really popping in church and everything, teens are like the best to run your social media campaign because they're everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Websites that we know nothing about. Why not have a teenager run your media ministry or be a part of your media ministry to get the gospel into the gutter and the cracks of where people are? Y'all heard of ghost sites before, like a ghost Facebook page? They have ghost Facebook pages, Instagram sites. That mean, your team can have, this is my Instagram page, but this is what I want you to see. Behind here is who I really am. Behind here is all my other friends. Snapchat was created by two kids in college to easily access pornography. That's what Snapchat was all about. Young cats, young minds. You do the story behind them, they were churchgoers. They were church people. And so they were not allowed in some kind of way to really, express their creativity in church. So now you take it to these other millennials. And this started in college to get them addicted to pornography or to easily see pornography. You know, and we see what it's turned to now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I see teens not going to church.
Right.
So we have to let our kids be kids. We really do. With the goofiness, the quirkiness. There's one kid that ministered with me in my youth ministry. He's quiet. He kind of stares at you in a weird kind of way. But once he starts doing things, the boy is bad. He know how to do it. You just got to get him to it. Others was turned off by him, and it was like he need to go sit with his mama. I'm like, no, we're gonna work on him. We're gonna work on him. A lot of patience when it comes out with teens and young adults. They different.
That's awesome. I appreciate you, Anthony, for dropping the knowledge of these teens here on the Morning Jam podcast.
Yes,
ma'am. Thank you.
It is just amazing because this is the third interview for us today.
Wow.
And I am just like in awe of all of the knowledge that I receive when I do interviews with so many amazing people that's out here in the world. That you think that, okay, nobody's out here doing anything, nobody's out here reaching the people, but when I connect and hear amazing things like you guys are doing at Swerve Radio Show and how you're reaching the teens and getting into their mind and making that relationship.
Amen.
I wish nothing but the best for you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let God continue to bless you all and
Amen.
just bless you where all the blessings where it needs to be. So I want you to let the people know where they can connect with you, get a hold of you, know more about Swerve Radio Show and all of that.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. SwervePureRadio.com. That's the website, SwervePureRadio.com. There you'll find the Instagram page. Swerve_TA is Instagram. The podcast is Swerve_TA on SoundCloud. Twitter, we're on Twitter, but it feels like I'm talking to myself all the time and nobody's listening. So, but we out there, Swerve_TA. But the biggest impact that we have is on Facebook, and it's our group page is called Swerve Nation. And so we love all of our Swervers, the nation of Swerve, and that's just really a gumbo of artists dropping videos, devotionals, sharing topics, discussions, and all that good stuff. I love the Swerve Nation page because you get to really see the real stuff out there. You're not kind of restricted by how much information you can kind of put on social media, So I've had to block some people and correct some people, but I love it because I love real stuff.
Yeah.
SwervePureRadio.com. Hit us up. And we're real. We talk back to people. We become friends. And that's what I like to do. And that's uncomfortable for people. They don't expect you to talk back. I like talking to people. I'm a touchy guy. I'm from South Carolina.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you here on the Morning Jam podcast. I am so excited to speak with your wife as well. I can't wait to set up the interview for her as well.
She's
it's
waiting.
Going to be great. Grace, we're going to have to, this lady, knowing from Anthony what he's already said about her, I cannot wait to meet her.
Y'all going to have some fun with her. I'm telling you now. I mean, how long is your show typically? Like 30 minutes?
30 minutes, yes.
Not when she talks to you.
It's okay.
Because there's going to be a lot of laughing now. I'm telling you.
An hour.
She is a fun person, and it's true that my wife doesn't have a single enemy. I mean, everybody loves my wife, and so I'm proud of her for what she's doing. She was one of the ones that was affected by COVID in that she lost her job, but we know that there was some other stuff done. But in her losing that job, she was able to start this clothing line that she's doing very well in right now. So
good.
You guys are ready to talk to her. Have fun.
I'm excited. I can't wait. Grace, we may have to join. You may have to come over here with me because when we're on one, we can go as long as we want.
Okay.
So I appreciate you, Anthony, for being on the Morning Jam podcast right here with your sister and friend Crystal Cross, along with my co-host Grace Milton. Grace, you can let the people know how they can connect with you and.
Hi, I'm Grace Whitaker Milton here, a wonderful co-host. Wonderful. I'm just
wonderful.
Wonderful. And you can contact me Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the platforms, Grace Whitaker Milton. Also, you can connect with me on my Positive Girls page where we keep it real, we motivate, inspire, reach out and help at any given time where we're getting ready to pack backpacks for nurses to help to give. I would like to have them ready by Christmas. So if you guys are wanting to give in any kind of way, please contact me. Send me an email, gracemelton19@gmail.com. Contact me and help me pack these backpacks for our nurses for being on the front line. But guys, I'm so happy to be on this platform with yours truly, your sister and your friend, Crystal Cross.
Well, thank you. I just want to send out a huge thank you. I cannot forget to send out a huge thank you to WadeWorksStudios in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Wade, Wade, for all that you do for your sister and your friend, Crystal Cross. Also want to send out a huge thank you to Channel 49 TV in Miami, Florida. Also, UGN Network, out of New Orleans. I can't wait to be with them as well, starting Heart to Heart with my show. I can't wait. I'm going to also get Mrs. Franklin on that as well.
Okay.
She's going to have to come and be with us there.
Okay.
Cool. I can't wait to just open the doors that God opened for me. He's going to I'm not going to be afraid to walk through. I know in 2020, the COVID with everything, and now 2021, God is going to do even greater. So I thank you guys for just being on the platform of the Morning Jam podcast with your sister and your friend, Crystal Cross. You guys be blessed, be motivated, be inspired, but let God follow, lead, and guide you in all that you do.
All right.
Keep that. Love you guys.
Swerve.
Swerve.
Bye.
God bless.
Check out the Thinking Out Loud Network at thinkingoutloudnetwork.com.